Imagine finding a large, heavy-looking coin sitting in an old collection, a drawer, a box of change, or even tucked away in a family keepsake. At first glance, it doesn't look like anything extraordinary. It simply says $50, carries the familiar portrait of President John F. Kennedy, and shows a date that is now more than 50 years old. But there is something about this particular coin that makes it worth stopping before you spend it. Look closely at the date, 1972. Now look directly underneath the date. Do you see a mint mark, or is there nothing there? That tiny detail can completely change the story of the coin. And before you assume that every 1972 Kennedy $50 is rare, valuable, or worth hundreds of dollars, stay with me because the truth is actually much more interesting. Some 1972 Kennedy $50 are common. Some are worth only a little more than face value, but certain high-grade examples, and especially certain varieties, can bring dramatically higher prices. And the biggest mistake you can make is looking at the coin, seeing 1972, and immediately deciding that it is either worthless or extremely valuable. Today we're going to examine this coin from every angle. We're going to talk about its history, its design, its composition, its mint mark, its condition, the famous 1972 varieties collectors watch for, how much examples can realistically be worth, and most importantly, exactly what you should check before you sell or spend one. So if you have a 1972 Kennedy $50 anywhere in your collection, don't put it away just yet. Take it out. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark area, and then look at the reverse. Because the smallest details on a coin can sometimes tell the biggest story. The coin we're looking at today is the Kennedy $50 dated 1972. The Kennedy $50 is one of the most recognizable American coins ever produced. The series began in 1964. Shortly after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, the design was introduced very quickly, and the first Kennedy $50 were struck in 1964. That first issue was made of 90% silver, but the story changed as the years went on. Beginning in 1965, the United States Mint changed the composition of the $50 because of rising silver prices and the changing economics of coin production. The Kennedy $50 was produced with a reduced silver composition from 1965 through 1970. Then came 1971. This is an important point for anyone looking at a 1972 Kennedy $50. By 1971, the mint had removed silver from the regular Kennedy $50 and moved to the copper-nickel clad composition that continued for later circulation issues. The 1972 coin in your photo belongs to this copper-nickel clad era. So if someone tells you that every Kennedy $50 from the early 1970s is a silver coin, be careful. That is not correct. A regular 1972 Kennedy $50 is not a 90% silver coin. According to the U.S. Mint specifications for this type, the $50 has a copper-nickel outer layer over a copper core, weighs about 1134 grams, measures about 30.61 millimeters across, and has a reeded edge. That large size is one reason Kennedy $50 feel different from quarters and other modern coins. And that weight is also something collectors can use when checking unusual examples. Now let's look at the obverse, or the front of the coin. The most obvious feature is the portrait of President John F. Kennedy. His portrait faces left. Around him is the word Liberty. At the bottom is the date, 1972. You can also see the familiar inscriptions, "In God We Trust." The design was created by Gilroy Roberts, who served as chief engraver of the United States Mint. The reverse design was created by Frank Gasparo. When you look closely at the Kennedy portrait, you'll notice that the design contains many small details. On a circulated coin, some of those details can become softer over time. That is completely normal. Coins were made to circulate, and when they pass through hands, machines, pockets, bags, drawers, and containers, the highest points of the design receive wear first. That is why condition is so important. Two coins can have exactly the same date and mint mark and still have very different values. One might be worth around face value or modestly above it. Another, if it is an exceptional uncirculated coin or a recognized variety, could be worth much more. That's one of the most important lessons in coin collecting. Now let's talk about one of the most important things visible on your coin. Look underneath the date. For Kennedy $50 from this period, the mint mark location is on the obverse, below Kennedy's portrait. Your photographed coin appears to have no mint mark there. That generally identifies it as a Philadelphia minted coin, and this is where many new collectors become confused. They see no letter and assume that something is missing. But in this case, no mint mark can be completely normal. The Philadelphia Mint did not place a mint mark on these regular 72 Kennedy half dollars, so don't assume that a missing mint mark automatically means you have an error. It can simply mean that the coin was struck at Philadelphia. This distinction is extremely important. A coin can be unusual because something is missing that should normally be there. But if the design was intentionally produced without that feature, then it isn't an error. Collectors always have to know what the normal version looks like before deciding that something is a mistake. Now comes another important question. If this coin was made in 1972, does that automatically make it rare? No. And this is where realistic coin collecting becomes much more interesting than sensational headlines. The 1972 Philadelphia Kennedy half dollar had a reported mintage of approximately 318 million pieces. That is a large number. So a normal circulated 1972 Philadelphia Kennedy half dollar is not considered an ultra-rare coin simply because it carries the 1972 date. There was also a 1972 D issue from Denver with approximately 141.89 million regular business strike coins produced. And San Francisco produced proof versions for collectors. So when you hear somebody say, "Aren't a Kennedy half dollar men worth thousands?" you should immediately ask, which 1972 Kennedy half dollar? Is it Philadelphia? Is it Denver? Is it a proof? Is it a special variety? Is it an error? What condition is it in? Is it certified? Those questions matter. A coin's value is never just about the date printed on it. Let's talk about condition. Coin collectors generally describe condition using grading terminology. You may hear words such as good, very fine, extremely fine, about uncirculated and mint state. Mint state coins are coins that have not circulated in the normal sense. But even among uncirculated coins, there are many different grades. An MS-60 coin and an MS-67 coin may both technically be uncirculated, but they can look dramatically different under magnification. That's because collectors are not only looking for the absence of wear, they are also looking at luster, marks, strike quality, surface preservation, eye appeal, and other characteristics. This is where a normal 1972 Kennedy half dollar can become interesting. The coin may have been produced in large numbers, but finding exceptionally preserved examples can harder. If you find a 1972 Kennedy half dollar that looks old, dirty, dark, or dull, there is one thing I strongly recommend you do not do. Do not clean it with household chemicals, metal polish, toothpaste, vinegar, or abrasive materials. This is one of the biggest mistakes beginners make. They find an old coin and think, if I make it shiny, it will be worth more. Unfortunately, that can be completely wrong. Professional collectors often prefer coins with original surfaces. Cleaning can leave scratches, unnatural shine, hairlines, or other evidence of alteration. And once a collectible coin has been harshly cleaned, its market appeal can drop significantly. So if your 1972 Kennedy half dollar looks dirty, resist the temptation. Leave it alone. A coin that looks naturally old is often much more interesting to a serious collector than a coin that has been aggressively polished. Now turn the coin over. This is where the reverse becomes important. You can see the American eagle in the center. Around it are the words, United States of America. And half dollar. You can also see the traditional motto, E pluribus unum. The eagle is surrounded by stars and other elements that give the reverse a very detailed appearance. Now here's something important. Don't just look at the center of the reverse. Look around the lower left and lower right areas. Look at the letters. Look at the eagle. Look at the feathers. Look at the fields around the design. And most importantly, look at the small initials associated with the reverse designer. This is where one of the most interesting 1972 Kennedy half dollar varieties comes into the story. Collectors who specialize in Kennedy half dollars know that the 1972 series contains an important variety involving the initials FG. The initials stand for Frank Gasparo, the designer of the reverse. A recognized variety exists on the 1972 D Kennedy half dollar where the FG initials are missing from the reverse. This is commonly called the 1972 D no FG variety. Now stop for a moment, because this is extremely important for your coin. The coin in your photograph appears to have no mint mark, meaning it appears to be the Philadelphia issue, rather than a 1972 D Denver issue. So you should not automatically call your coin a 1972 D no FG. The famous no FG variety is specifically associated with the Denver issue. That means you need to separate two things. A normal 1972 Philadelphia Kennedy half dollar with no mint mark, and a 1972D Kennedy half dollar with the recognized no FG variety. They are not the same coin. This is exactly why serious coin collectors examine the entire coin instead of relying on one exciting sounding feature. PCGS lists the 1972D no FG as a major variety in the Kennedy half dollar series, PCGS, and certified examples of that variety can command substantially higher prices than ordinary example. Now let's get to the question everyone wants answered. How much is a 1972 Kennedy half dollar worth? The honest answer is, it depends. A regular circulated 1972 Philadelphia example is generally not a fortune. Current pricing references show that ordinary circulated 1972 Kennedy half dollars can remain relatively close to face value, while uncirculated and especially high-grade examples can be worth more. PCGS's current price guide, for example, lists increasing values as the grade rises, with very high-grade 1972 examples reaching into the hundreds or even thousands of dollars in its guide, depending on grade, PCGS. But here's the important part. Those higher numbers do not mean that every 1972 half dollar in someone's drawer is worth hundreds or thousands. A heavily circulated coin is a completely different situation from an exceptionally preserved certified coin. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings on social media. Someone sees a headline saying, 1972, Kennedy half dollar worth $3,000, and assumes their worn coin is worth $3,000. That's not how the coin market works. The grade has to match, the variety has to match, the mint mark has to match, and when dealing with serious money, the coin should usually be authenticated and professionally graded. Another common question is whether your 1972 coin contains silver. For a regular 1972 Kennedy half dollar, the answer is no. The U.S. Mint states that silver was removed from the regular Kennedy half dollar beginning in 1971, when the composition changed to copper-nickel clad, United States Mint. That means your 1972 coin should not be valued simply for silver content. This is very different from a 1964 Kennedy half dollar, which was made with 90% silver. It's also different from the 1965-1970 Kennedy half dollars, which contain a reduced amount of silver. So if you're sorting a group of old Kennedy half dollars, the year matters tremendously. 1964 is a major silver date. 1965 through 1970 belong to the reduced silver period. 1971 and later regular circulation issues are copper-nickel clad, with exceptions involving certain special products and later silver proofs. That simple timeline can help you avoid a lot of mistakes. Here's another interesting test. If you have a digital scale at home, you can carefully weigh the coin. A regular modern copper-nickel clad Kennedy half dollar is specified at about 1134 grams. The U.S. Mint lists the half dollar's diameter at approximately 30.61 millimeters and its weight at 1134 grams, United States Mint. But remember, a small difference on a household scale does not automatically mean you have a rare error. Coins can experience normal tolerances. Wear can affect weight slightly. Dirt can add a little weight. Different scales can also produce different readings. So weight should be treated as one clue, not the entire diagnosis. If a coin is dramatically outside the expected specifications, then it becomes much more interesting. The Kennedy half dollar has a reeded edge. Those tiny lines around the edge are part of the normal design. If you see something unusual there, don't immediately assume it's valuable. Ask yourself, does the edge look normal? Is there evidence of damage? Is there an unusual seam? Does the coin appear thinner or thicker than normal? Does the edge show signs of manipulation? Again, the goal isn't to find something strange just for the sake of finding something strange. The goal is to determine whether the coin matches the normal specifications. Collectors often discover valuable errors because they first learn what a normal coin should look like. Even though the normal 1972 Philadelphia Kennedy half dollar isn't an ultra-rare coin, the year remains interesting for collectors. Why? Because it sits right in the early copper-nickel era. The Kennedy half dollar had already moved away from its original 90% silver composition. The United States Mint was producing enormous numbers of these coins, and collectors were still building sets around the Kennedy half dollar series. At the same time, Varieties and high-grade examples were beginning to create different levels of scarcity. This is one of the reasons coin collecting is so fascinating. A coin can be common overall and still have scarce versions. Think about it like this. Imagine a factory produces millions of the same model of car. Most are ordinary, but perhaps a small number have a rare factory option, a production mistake, or unusually low mileage. Suddenly, those examples become more interesting. Coins can work in a similar way. The date tells you when it was made. The mint mark tells you where it was made. The condition tells you how well it survived. And the variety or error tells you whether something unusual happened during production. Put those things together and that's where the real collecting story begins. If you have a 1972 Kennedy half dollar, I recommend following a simple inspection process. First, check the date. Make sure it really says 1972. Second, check the mint mark area below Kennedy. If there is no mint mark, you're likely looking at the Philadelphia issue. If there is a D, you're looking at Denver. If you see an S, you need to determine whether it's a proof issue. Third, inspect the overall condition. Does the coin show obvious circulation wear? Are Kennedy's hair details worn? Are the fields heavily marked? Does the coin still have strong original luster? Fourth, flip it over and examine the reverse. Look carefully at the designer initials area. If you have a 1972D, pay particular attention to the possibility of the no FG variety. Fifth, check the edge. Make sure there isn't anything dramatically unusual. Sixth, if you suspect an error or valuable variety, don't clean the coin. And finally, compare your coin against reliable references or consider professional authentication and grading if the potential value justifies the cost. Let's imagine two 1972 Kennedy half dollars sitting on a table. Both have the same date. Both are Philadelphia coins. Both were struck from the same basic composition. But one coin spent decades circulating. It was handled by thousands of people. It went through vending machines. It was stacked with other coins. It picked up scratches and contact marks. The other coin was placed into careful storage shortly after it was produced. Its surfaces remained bright. Its details remained sharp. Its fields remained relatively clean. Even though both coins are technically the same date and type, collectors may value them very differently. This is why professional grading exists. Grading attempts to establish the condition of the coin using standardized terminology. For collectors, that creates a common language. Instead of simply saying, "This coin looks really nice," someone can say, "This coin is graded MS66. That provides a much more useful description. Of course, grading is not magic. Different graders can sometimes disagree, and certification costs money, so you don't want to send every ordinary half dollar to a grading company. If you're watching this because you found a 1972 Kennedy half dollar, here's the mindset I want you to have. Don't assume it's worthless, but don't assume it's a jackpot either. Start with the facts. A normal circulated example can be modestly valued. An attractive uncirculated example may be worth more. A very high-grade example can be significantly more valuable. A recognized variety can be much more interesting. A genuine mint error can potentially be valuable. And a professionally certified, exceptional example can bring prices far beyond what an ordinary coin would bring. That's the honest way to approach coin collecting. Instead of asking, "How can I prove this coin is worth thousands?" So let's summarize the value story. A normal 1972 Kennedy half dollar is generally not a retirement coin. It is not automatically worth thousands. It is not made of silver. And the absence of a mint mark on a Philadelphia issue is not automatically an error. But that doesn't mean you should ignore it. If the coin is in excellent condition, it becomes more interesting. If it has an unusual mint characteristic, it becomes more interesting. If it matches a recognized variety, it becomes more interesting. And if it is a high-grade certified example, its value can be considerably higher than the basic face value. For comparison, NGC's current guide for 1972D examples shows ordinary circulated values around the face value range, while pristine certified examples can reach much higher levels. NGC, that should give you a realistic idea of how much condition matters. So the next time you see an old Kennedy half dollar, don't immediately throw it into a pile of ordinary change. Turn it over. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Look at the condition. Study the reverse. And if something doesn't look right, investigate it before making a decision. The most valuable thing you can develop as a coin collector isn't a giant collection. It's the ability to recognize what you're looking at Because sometimes the difference between an ordinary coin and an important collectible isn't obvious at first glance. It might be a tiny mint mark. It might be a small variety. It might be an unusual strike. It might be an exceptionally clean surface. Or it might simply be a coin that survived decades in remarkable condition. And that is exactly why the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar deserves a second look. If you have one, take it out and inspect it carefully. Don't clean it. Don't scratch it. Don't assume a viral price is automatically real. And don't sell it just because someone tells you that all 1972 Kennedy half-dollars are common. Look at the actual coin in your hand. Because in coin collecting, the details are everything. And if your 1972 Kennedy half-dollar turns out to be a normal circulated example, you've still got something interesting. A piece of early 1970s American coinage from the continuing story of one of the most recognizable half-dollar designs ever made. But if yours is unusually sharp, unusually well-preserved, or has a genuine variety or mint error, that's when the story can become much more interesting. So before you spend that old half-dollar for just 50 cents, take one final look. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Check the reverse. Check the condition. And most importantly,